Recording in progress.
Welcome members of the public to the workshop meeting for the Township of Chatham this Tuesday, September 9th, 2025. The committee has returned from executive session, and I shall affirm that Mr. LeConte has previously confirmed adequate notice has been given. I now ask everyone to rise for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. LeConte, could you kindly provide guidance for the first hearing of citizens?
Yes, and a quick question. I assume that any questions pertaining to the reval will be taken after the presentation on that?
Yes, that's good.
Yeah. Okay, members of the public are now welcome to come up to the microphone to address the Township Committee. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to be heard about issues which are not topics scheduled for public hearings tonight. Those present may step up to the microphone to be heard. If you're watching via Zoom, you may speak during any of the public comment sessions by following the Zoom instructions to raise your hand. Whether in person or online, when you are recognized to speak, please mind the following procedures. Please say your name, spell your last name, and give the name of your street. You do not need to give your street number. All public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Rather than use any of your time answering questions, the Township Committee will wait until you finish speaking before responding. There are 2 public comment sessions on tonight's agenda. Each member of the public will be limited to 1 comment of up to 3 minutes during each public comment period. Written comments, if we had actually received any submitted to the Township Clerk before 3 p.m., would have been read during the public comment sessions. Written comments are subject to the same guidelines as oral comments. Duplicative written comments may be summarized rather than read in full, according to guidelines issued by the New Jersey Division of Local Government Services.
Thank you, Mr. LeConte. We do have a proclamation for this evening, and at this time...
Should we see if any of the public wants to come up first?
Yeah. So at this time, I now invite anyone in the audience, should they have a desire to approach the mic, please do so.
Can I just ask, I heard you say a moment ago that these are unrelated to the main topic.
Anything about the reval, any questions on that will be discussed after the reval presentation.
So these questions are...
This is anything, any topic other than the reval, which will have its own public hearing.
Great, and Mr. LeConte, do we have anyone?
We do not have any hands raised on Zoom.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. LeConte. So then at this time, we do have 1 proclamation for this evening.
And I'm going to quick bring Rachel in as panelist.
Ms. Sackett, you are on mute, but you now have the floor, Ms. Sackett.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ovarian cancer is one of the deadliest cancers impacting women, yet it remains one of the underfunded and least understood. Each year in the United States, nearly 20,000 women are diagnosed and over 10,700 will lose their lives to this disease, a staggering 64% mortality rate. Here in New Jersey, hundreds of women face this devastating diagnosis each year. Sadly, more than 75% are diagnosed at advanced stages due to vague symptoms and the lack of reliable early detection tests. The 5-year survival rate remains below 50%, and shockingly, that number has not increased in decades. At age 38, I was diagnosed with stage 3A low-grade serous ovarian cancer, or LGSOC, a rare form of ovarian cancer that disproportionately impacts young premenopausal women. This insidious disease has no standard of care, is chronic, and experiences an 85% recurrence rate. The impact on my life and my family as a result has been profound. Like many women that face LGSOC, I lost my ability to have biological children with no time or guidance to preserve fertility. Cancer robbed my husband and I of the dreams we had not yet fulfilled, and these losses still echo through every day of survivorship. As a 5-year survivor, it's heart-wrenching to think that I have beaten the odds. But even worse, there are the devastating stories of those who did not. One of them is my dear friend and first mentee, Jordan. who died last September during Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month, just one day after her 33rd birthday. Jordan was vibrant, brilliant, and full of hope. I had the privilege of running the Disney Princess 10K with her last February, only 7 short months prior to her passing. Jordan's last words to me were, "I'm glad you're fighting for awareness of this disease. I just don't have it in me right." Jordan's death crushed me, but I made her a promise to continue fighting for her and every woman still waiting for earlier detection, better treatment, and a real chance at survivor. Women like Jordan deserve more. They deserve better. They deserve a future. That begins with awareness, which leads to earlier diagnoses, research, resources, and ultimately survival. And that is why this September, I've asked for your leadership. Today is September 9th, as we recognize the 2nd annual Low-Grade Serous World Ovarian Cancer Day. Thank you for standing for survivors, honoring those we have lost, and helping to protect women across Chatham, New Jersey. Together, we can shine a light on this gravely overlooked disease and give hope to the women and families in our communities who need it the most.
Thank you, Ms. Sackett. This committee.
Thank you.
This committee and certainly this community certainly recognize the gravitas of ovarian cancer and what it can has certainly done to the lives of individuals in this community and more broadly the world. I now would like to, if I may, spend 2 minutes to read the proclamation. Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month. Whereas ovarian cancer is the 5th leading cause of cancer-related death among women in the United States, and the American Cancer Society estimates that in 2025, approximately 20,000 women will be diagnosed with ovarian cancer and 12,000 will die from the disease nationwide, including an estimated 670 new cases and 340 deaths in New Jersey alone. Whereas a woman's lifetime risk of being diagnosed with ovarian cancer is approximately 1 in 91, and her lifetime risk of dying from the disease is approximately 1 in 143. And whereas, due to vague and nonspecific symptoms in the absence of a reliably early detection test, the majority of women are diagnosed at stage 3 or later, where the cancer has already spread beyond the ovaries. And whereas although 5-year survival rate for stage 1 ovarian cancer exceeds 90%, only 15% of cases are diagnosed at this early stage. For those diagnosed in later stages, the 5-year survival rate drops to a sobering 30% or below. Whereas while screening tools such as mammograms and pap tests exist for breast and cervical cancers, no equivalent screening test exists for ovarian cancer, making awareness of symptoms and risk factors essential for early intervention. And whereas increased public education about ovarian cancer can help save lives by promoting earlier diagnosis, supporting access to gynecologic oncology care, and encouraging research funding for better detection and treatment options. And whereas during the month of September, the Township of Chatham joined survivors, families, healthcare professionals, advocacy organizations, and all those committed to raising awareness, remembering lives lost, and offering hope for a future with better outcomes and ultimately a cure. Now therefore I, Mayor Michael Choi, do hereby proclaim September 25 as Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month in the Township of Chatham, New Jersey, and encourage all residents to participate in awareness activities, wear teal in support, and engage in conversations that help save lives and support the thousands of families affected by this devastating disease. I thank you for your time, Ms. Sackett. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chadha?
Thank you, Mayor. Next 2 items, being that this is a workshop meeting, and we try to only take action at these meetings by exception, only on things that are extremely timely. That being said, Mayor, there are 2 items on the agenda, resolutions 2025-170 and 2025-171, which are listed for consideration for action by the governing body this evening. If there aren't any questions, then Mayor, we just need a motion and a second.
I believe we can vote on these jointly if you want.
Yes. So with regard to resolution 2025-170, authorizing change order for Flagler Loop, do I have a motion?
I move that
we authorize the change order for that, for the fiber loop. I'll second.
Mr. O'Connor?
Mr. Alperowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Ewald?
Yes.
Mr. McHugh?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rowland?
Yes.
And Mayor Choi.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. O'Conti. With regard to Resolution 2025-171, Police Sergeant Promotion, do I have a motion to adopt said resolution?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Committee. Mr. O'Conti?
Mr. Alperowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Ewald?
Yes.
Mr. McHugh?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rowland?
Yes.
And Mayor Choi.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. O'Conti.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mayor.
O'Conti?
At this point, Mayor, we've got slated on the agenda and is mailed to residents and noticed on our website a presentation on the county ordered townwide tax revaluation. This evening we have our tax assessor and members of the firm that has been contracted to do the revaluation here to offer a presentation. I would ask that we allow them to make their presentation completely and conclude that, and at that point you can open that up to questions and answers, because I do think their presentation does answer a lot of questions that members of the public might have. They've been doing this in many municipalities and are very well versed in the matter and can anticipate concerns. So with that said, gentlemen, come on up, please.
All right, can everyone see this presentation right here? Is that good? Does it get bigger?
Think that answer.
Are they on the monitors up there?
Is there a full screen?
Can we pivot that?
Are they also on the monitors up there too, or are they not? Those, is the presentation on those two monitors as well?
That is the monitor.
No, the ones that are hanging up on us. They're not?
Yeah, there we go.
Now that everyone got cozy together.
Pay for something.
Pivot it a little bit more? Is that, can you turn it a little more?
I can.
Yeah,
We're good.
I'll email it to you.
Yeah, so before I do get started, this presentation will be up on our website, so you'll be able to see all the slides, but I'll take you through it now. Is it okay if I steal that mouse?
Oh, yes, yeah, you can steal the mouse.
We're going to post a video of this.
Yes, and thank you. So this meeting is being recorded, as well as all of our township committee meetings are. So for anybody that's here in the audience and also online, this will be available on the township website, through also YouTube, and we will make a post about this. So it will be available, and as he just indicated, it's also on your website, correct?
Correct.
Which is also linked to, which is linked from the township website as well. Thank you.
All right, well, everyone, thank you for having me. My name is Rob Brescia. I work for Appraisal Systems, and we're the company that was hired to do this revaluation process. What I prepared for you tonight is a PowerPoint presentation on the revaluation process. So I'm going to take you through and explain what a revaluation is, why it needs to be done, and the 7 steps to that process. The presentation should take about 25 minutes, and then I'll hang around to answer any and all questions. So the first thing is, what is a revaluation? So a revaluation is when an outside firm comes into a town and appraises every property in town. So we're going to inspect and appraise all of the vacant land, commercial, residential, exempt properties. We're going to appraise those properties as of October 1st of the pre-tax year, bring it up to 100% fair market value, and then the town will use these new values for property tax purposes. Now, why is the revaluation being done? Well, very simply, the revaluation is being done in Chatham because you were ordered to do this. Okay, this was ordered by the state and the county to do this. Now, the reason why they ordered this revaluation to be done is because they determined that the assessments in Chatham are not uniform. Okay, So the sole purpose of a revaluation is to make sure that everyone's paying their fair share of taxes and everyone's being treated uniformly, okay? There used to be this misconception out there that revaluations were done to raise taxes. That's simply not true, okay? The sole purpose is to make sure everyone's being treated uniformly and fairly, like I mentioned. At the end of this process, the township will collect the same amount of money in taxes, okay? So basically what happens is the town takes their budget, they take the net taxable value, which is all the assessments added up, they divide one factor into another, they come up with a tax rate, and that gets applied uniformly throughout the township. Now, at the end of this process, the net taxable value is gonna go up, so the tax rate will get adjusted accordingly, so therefore, the township's gonna collect the same amount of taxes, but where that tax dollar is coming from, the pie, if you will, that will change. Okay, so the taxes from the property owners may shift. And I have an example in the next slide or two. So some of the criteria for why a revaluation needs to be done is here on this slide. First and foremost is the time between the last reassessment. So the last reval that was done in Chatham was 1992, okay? And then there was a reassessment done in 2005. So the last time these assessments were changed were back in 2005. Okay. Sure. The second criteria that they look for is the town ratio. Okay, the state and the county would like the ratio to be as close to 100% as possible, and right now the town is at a 72% ratio. So what that means is that the assessments are about 72% of fair market value. All right, so that's a little too low for the state's liking. And then there's a coefficient of deviation. So the way I like to explain this, just to make the math easier, I'll give you an example. If a property sells for $800,000, but it's assessed for $400,000, that's a 50% ratio, okay? So one of the jobs of the assessor is they record all the assessment to sale prices that occur in Chatham. So if every sale that came across the assessor's desk fell at about 50%, the state wouldn't like that because the ratio is low, but they would say, you know, if everyone's coming at 50%, that means for the most part people are treated uniformly, right? But the problem would be is when you get some sales that are falling at 75% and other sales that are falling at 25%. So in that case, you're gonna have an average ratio of 50%, but that standard deviation is very large, okay? So when you have that example, the properties that are coming in at 75%, they're paying too much in taxes. Whereas the properties that are falling at 25%, they're paying too little, okay? So again, when that starts to happen, and the coefficient is saying that that's happening here, what we need to do is bring all the assessments up to 100% fair market value, start over, this way everyone's gonna be paying their fair share, okay? Now this is the slide I was talking about. This is what you could expect at the end of the job. I think this slide is really good because it ties everything in towards the end. So I'd like to give you an example of just a property. Right now, let's just say their assessment on record is $875,000. What's important to remember that that assessment at $875,000 was an assessment that was placed on the property back in 2005, almost 20 years ago. Okay, and there's been a lot of changes in the market since 2005. Now with a tax rate of 2.104, this property for this year will pay $18,410 in taxes. Okay, so now your individual property tax implications are solely going to depend on what your property does in relation to the average that takes place in the entire town. Okay, so if the average increase for the town after the revaluation is done is 1.4 times, what happens is the tax rate will decrease by that same factor, assuming the budgets remain neutral. Okay, this is just due to the revaluation. So therefore, if the net taxable value goes up 1.4 times, you would expect going into the following year, the tax rate drop from 2.104 to 1.503. Okay, and that's how the town ends up collecting the same amount of money the following year. Like I said, revals are revenue neutral, okay? So now, what does this mean to your property? For the following year, now I know that this revaluation is going on for the tax year 2027, but for the example, I just put the following year. So for next year, let's say the reval went on for next year, if your property increased to 1.225 million, which is 1.4 times in this example, your property is going to remain tax neutral. Because when you take your new assessment and times it by that new rate of 1.503, when you work out the math, you can see your taxes are basically identical. Okay? So now, like I said a couple minutes ago, that pie is going to change. The property owner's slices. Some people are going to go up in taxes and some property owners are going to go down in taxes. So the two examples at the bottom, if your property increases less than the average increase, you're in line for a tax decrease, as an example number one. If your property increases more than the average, your property is going to be in line for a tax increase. Okay? So we won't know this till the end of the process, but we will share this with you when we have that information. Now, by doing a lot of these presentations, I usually got a question at this point where people say, okay, this makes sense, I understand this, but why are we doing this now? It's arguably the height of the market. These values are going to be inflated, and if these values are inflated, therefore we're going to be paying too much in taxes. So I just created another slide. It looks identical to this to kind of show that there really isn't a good or a bad time to do a revaluation, okay? As long as you pick a specific moment in time, which I mentioned was October 1st of the pre-tax year, it doesn't matter if the market's going up, going down, or staying neutral. As long as we treat everybody uniformly and fairly at that same standard, we could ensure that everyone's going to be paying their fair share. So if I just rip through this example real quick, the top is the same where your current assessment's at $875, you're paying $18,400 in taxes. Let's just say now the net taxable value doubles, okay? And this would cause a lot of people to get sticker shock when the values go out, if this were to happen. But what would happen is the tax rate of 2.104 is going to get cut in half. Okay, again, this is how they collect the same amount of money. So in this example, the tax rate would go down to $1.05, 1.052. So in this example, if you were assessed at $875 and you got a value from us saying that your house is now worth $1.75, like I said, that's sticker shock right there. But again, it all depends on what your property does in relation to the entire town. So again, since in this example, you're going up 2 times, your taxes are going to stay the same. And then the same 2 examples apply. If your assessment goes up less than the average, you're going down. If it goes up more than the average, you're going up. Okay, so that's the rule of thumb. So that's how this all ties into the end, and this is what it means for you as the property owner. So now real briefly, I'd like to take you through the 7 steps of the revaluation process. Most of this presentation is going to be the inspection portion, okay? So first and foremost, the first step is the inspection. So a couple of weeks ago, each property owner received an introduction letter from our company with a brochure, and this kind of announced the kickoff to the revaluation process, okay? So the letter did say an inspector will be coming to your property between the hours of 9 and 5, and they'll be doing the inspection of your property. Now, first and foremost, I want everyone to kind of be aware that all our inspectors will be wearing this appraisal systems ID that looks exactly like this. Please, under no circumstance, let anyone onto your property that does not have that exact ID, okay? What we also like to do is on our website that we mentioned will be linked, we share an Excel spreadsheet that tells you where our inspectors are located, okay? Now, we do come unannounced to inspect your property. It's just virtually impossible to schedule an appointment with every property owner. So what we can do is you could go on our website, and like I said, on that Excel sheet, you could see when your property has been issued, okay? And once your property has been issued, you could expect an inspector to be to your property probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. In addition, we tell you what inspector your property was issued to, okay? So there's another section on our website that's our staff information sheet. So like in this case, it would say your property was assigned to Sarah Holbig, Inspector 107. You could click on her staff information sheet and her ID, all her vital stats, car information, everything will be posted on our website. Okay, so we try to give you a little heads up as to who's coming to your property and when. Now, as far as the inspection, there's 2 components to the inspection. There's the site inspection and then the actual inspection of your property. The site inspection takes place before the inspector actually steps foot onto your property. He or she is going to look at the surrounding area to see if there's any influences that would affect your property in a positive or negative way. So this slide right here just shows how a site influence could affect your property in a positive way. For example, a view or a view located on a body of water or a view of a lake, those are all considered positive site influences. Some examples of negative site influences are in this slide right here. Picture of the top is a beautiful colonial style home, but they have high tension power lines that run right through the backyard. Picture to the left is a property that's located right next to a railroad track, and the picture on the bottom right is a house that's located on a busy street. Okay, so those would be examples of negative influences. After the site inspection, that's when the inspector will step foot onto your property. They'll ring your doorbell, announce who they are, and then they're going to measure the outside of your house, measure and sketch all the improvements on the property. This next slide shows what the final product would be. We sketch each house from a bird's eye view. Each section of the house will be broken out. It will be labeled so you could see that, and it will tell you how big each section is. So just real quick, this is your typical Cape Cod style home where the main section of the house is 1.5 stories over a basement. So right here, you'll be able to see on your property record card that this section is 1.5 stories with a basement. This section over here to the left is an unfinished attic with a garage. And again, each section will be identified on your property record card. As the inspector's walking around your property, they're going to note the style of your home. This slide just kind of tells you the main types of homes, the style of homes. You got your typical ranch style 1 story, your Cape Cod that we just saw, which is typically 1.5 stories. You got your colonial 2-story building, your split level, and your bi-level. The inspector will also take note of the quality and condition of the home. This slide just shows you different types of qualities and conditions. Now, a question that we always get is, since you're coming unannounced, what happens if you're not home during that first visit? And that's okay, that's gonna happen more times than not. So what our inspector's going to do is they're gonna try their best to do the site inspection and the exterior inspection. That's the most time-consuming portion of the inspection, so we wanna try to get that done during the first visit, when it's still light out, and then when we come back to do the interior inspection, we don't have to bother you for too long. So what the inspector will do is they're gonna leave a card on your door. We simply call this our yellow callback card. And what it's gonna do, it's gonna leave a day and a time for a return visit to do the interior inspection. Now, when we set up these callback appointments, typically we'll do them in the evening between 5 and 7. Reason for that is if we can't catch you home during that first visit during the day, we're going to assume that you're typically not home during the day, so we're gonna come during the evening hours. If we just happen to miss you and you prefer a daytime appointment, there's a number you could call to set up an appointment that's mutually convenient for the inspector and yourself. So we do these appointments during the daytime, at night, and on some weekends. The interior inspection, much less time consuming. Typically it takes about 5 to 10 minutes depending on the size of the house. What the inspector is going to do is walk through all levels of the house. They're going to note things such as the room count. They're going to look to see what type of heat the house has, whether or not it has central air, how many bedrooms, fireplaces, things of that nature. One of the things they'll be looking for is the condition and quality of the kitchen. Okay, and this slide just shows you different types of conditions and qualities of the kitchen. And they're going to do the same for the bathrooms. Okay, so here's another slide that shows different types of qualities and conditions. In regards to the basement and attics, the inspectors will be going into the basement. They're looking to see if that area is finished. If so, what's the quality and condition of that finished area? So what makes up a finished basement is 3 components: walls, floors, and ceilings. So any combination of that would be considered finished, and then the inspector will say how much percentage-wise is finished. So for example, if you have 2 components that are fully finished, that's a 66% finished basement, okay? The same thing is done with the attic area. However, we are only inspecting attics that have fixed stairs, okay? So we're not going into any pull-down attics or attics that you need a ladder to get through. So it has to have fixed stairs. Now, if you're not home during that first visit, like I mentioned, we're gonna leave that yellow callback card. If we don't hear from you, we're going to assume that that appointment that was on that card was good for you, so we're gonna come during that time. If you're not home again during that time, what we're gonna do is leave another card on your door. And we just call this our blue estimate card. So now, at the end of this process, if we do not gain access to the interior of the home, we have to make assumptions. Okay, so what we have to do, we're obligated to estimate at the highest, most reasonable potential. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna tell you on this card what your home is gonna be listed as having if we don't gain entrance to your home by the end of the process. Okay, so it's gonna tell you the number of units, number of baths, heat, central air, quality, overall condition, quality. Okay, so another question I get is, what does reasonable potential mean? So the example I like to give is if you're a small, let's say 1,400 square foot ranch, and the house has a basement, it's reasonable to assume the basement's finished. It's also reasonable to assume that the kitchen has been updated and the bathroom has been updated. Okay, it's not reasonable to assume that a 1,400 square foot ranch has 6 bathrooms. Okay, so you have to stay within reason. And once again, we're gonna let you know on this card. So if you come home one evening and you see this card on your door, if the information's incorrect, there's no need to panic. We have inspectors that are gonna be out in town for a very long time. Just call the number on the card and we'll send an inspector out right away. For condos and townhouses, the inspection process is exactly the same. There's gonna be a site inspection and there's gonna be the actual inspection of your property. The only difference is that instead of measuring the individual units, we will rely on master deeds to get the style, the layout, and the size of the unit.
We go to every unit in the condo building?
Yeah.
Go to every unit,
Yep.
okay.
Now, step number 2 is the analyzation part. So step number 1 and 2 happen at the same time. Okay, so as the inspectors are out in the field collecting all that information, there's appraisers back at the office that are analyzing all that information. Okay, so this is happening at the same time. One of the first things we're going to do is create a neighborhood map. Okay, so we're gonna drive the streets, and we're gonna carve up the town into homogeneous neighborhoods because we wanna compare similar homes. Okay, this is how we keep uniform and compare similar houses to each other. Okay, this neighborhood map will be available to you once step number 4 comes towards the end of the process. We will post this on our website so you could see how we broke the town into different neighborhoods. Step number 3 is the review process. Once we analyze all our information and place all our values on the properties, we're gonna give it a quick review. And this is where we like to share this information with the property owners. So this brings me to step number 4, okay? So step number 4 is when we share the information via a letter to each and every property owner. So before I go any further, this is step number 4 of the 7-step process. So when you get your value letter, which would be sometime, let's say November, December of next year, the values at this point are still very much preliminary. We like to share this information with you and then hear back from you, okay? So one of the first things we do once the value letters go out is we update our website with a lot of useful information. So first and foremost, that information that I share with you with those 2 slides where the net taxable value increased so much and then the predicted rate dropped this much, at this stage, we'll have enough information that we could do that for you, okay? So when we send these letters out, we will be able to come up with a predicted tax rate, assuming budgets stay neutral, just due to the revaluation, what the tax rate would be going forward. So we're gonna post that on our website, okay? There'll be a tax impact calculator where you'll be able to go online, plug in your old assessment, new assessment, and we'll do the math for you. So you'll be able to tell if you're in line for a property tax increase, decrease, or you're pretty much gonna stay the same.
Will we be able to see your neighbor's properties?
If you could just, sorry, we appreciate, we're gonna have time for questions at the end, so everybody can have a chance.
Yep, thank you. So after that tax impact calculator, that neighborhood map will be posted, okay? Then underneath that is we're gonna post all the sales that took place, usually over a 2-year sample period. And this is very useful. So if you're a colonial style home that's located in neighborhood 1, that's 2,000 square feet, you'll be able to go on our website and look at colonial sales that took place in neighborhood 1 around the same square footage and see what they're selling for. And if we have you assessed, let's just say for $1 million, and they're selling for 900 to 1.1, you'll then have the confidence to know that your property is assessed for what it's selling for. So you'll have the confidence that your assessment's correct. And the last thing that we post, because we are very big on transparency, is all the assessments, okay? So that actually works very well. Sometimes homeowners have a difficult time finding a good comparable sale, or maybe a good comparable sale doesn't exist. But property owners know their street pretty well, and you'll be able to compare your assessment with your neighbor's assessment. And again, that works pretty well, because I just give the example. If you know your house is better than the person to the left, but the person to the right has a nicer house than you, bigger house, you should expect that your assessment falls somewhere in between those 2, okay? So again, we supply all this information for you. Now, at this time, after we post all this information, if you're having trouble navigating our website or you're not understanding it, you'll have the opportunity to meet with a qualified representative from our company to go over your assessment. First and foremost, we'll go over your property record card, make sure that all the objective data that was collected is correct. Then that representative will go over all the sales that took place and the assessments, and we'll answer any and all questions that you have, and we'll tell you how we came up with that assessment. Once all those meetings are done, we collect all that information from the property owners, we do one last review, then that brings up to step number 6, where the information will be turned over to the town and the county. At this point, those assessments will become final for the 2027 tax year, okay? But what I always like to say, nothing's ever written in stone. If you continue to disagree with your assessment at this point, after meeting with us, you could always file an appeal, which is step number 7, to the Morris County Board of Taxation, okay? You're entitled to file an appeal every year, so that doesn't change. The only difference is in a typical year, the deadline to file an appeal is April 1st. Since you're going through a reval for 2027, they'll extend the deadline by 30 days, so you have to May 1st to file an appeal. All right, and that concludes the 7 steps of the revaluation process, and I would be happy to answer any and all questions.
If I may just provide a little bit of guidelines for the members of the public, and thank you very much for coming out this evening. It is important, this is a significant endeavor that the township is taking on. So we wanted to set up an environment where we have this evening session and a subsequent session later in the month at our next community meeting, should you desire to come to that one as well for additional information. For this evening, if I may respectfully ask to present, to offer up questions to our professional only. In the event you have a comment or an opinion you'd like to share, we do have a second hearing with citizens this evening as part of our meeting, and we'd be delighted to entertain your statements at that time. But we do have professionals. We've got a number of things on their docket. We want to be respectful of their time. We certainly want to be respectful of the other members of the public time who are here this evening. So again, if I may just respectfully ask to present questions at this time for our professional with regard to the presentation that was put forth this evening. And again, there is a second hearing of citizens. We certainly want to provide ample opportunity for you to share your thoughts or questions. Questions right now, thoughts or opinions or comments later on this evening. Thank you all.
And when asking questions, please give your name and what street you live on.
Mayor, before we move to the public, sorry, one topic wasn't covered, and I was just wondering if they could address that briefly. How are commercial properties and rental residential properties handled in the reval?
Sure. So residential, there's three approaches to value. There's a sales approach, cost approach, and income approach. So sales rule in both cases. For residential, we rely on the sales approach and the cost approach to come up with value. For commercial, we're going to rely on the income approach to value the properties. So we will take a look at the income data and work it out that way.
Mayor, just
Thank
want to add also, so there is another presentation, so if anybody wants to, again, it's online, but we are going to have another presentation that will be on, Rob, do you remember that is Thursday, September 25th?
25th.
25th. And if someone does not have an opportunity to ask their question this evening, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you could call our office at 201-493-8530.
One more time, Rob.
201-493-8530.
So if you don't get a chance to ask it today or a question comes to mind later, you can also contact them. The firm was hired through public bidding process based on their expertise and their knowledge and their performance throughout the state, and so that's why they're the ones doing this. So again, as the clerk indicated, please state your name and address, and
Paula Venditti, Birch Hill. Thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. So in Chatham, as you know, there's a lot of new construction. So my question is, in terms of the reval, if you're in a neighborhood, say, as I am, and as the mayor is, of colonials, and they are razed and new homes are put in at 2 or sometimes 3 times the value, how does that affect the revaluation? Thank you.
And just to be clear, are you an older home?
72.
Okay, so we carve up the town into neighborhoods, right? And that's going to be the basis for our land values. Okay, then each house is valued separately. So if you're an older home, you're not going to be compared to those newer homes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Joe Zorn, I live on Running Beach Road. I guess I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I tried to scratch them down while you were chatting. I guess from the outset, I was just curious, who is funding this entire initiative? We know that your firm is going to manage it, but where are the funds coming from to accomplish all this?
The funds are actually coming from the taxpayers. There's only one place where we can raise the money, and that is all of our money in the budget comes from taxpayers. When we were notified of the order from the county to do this, what we did was immediately start to take preparation steps. They give us some time. Tax revaluations are one of the items that the state allows us to do what's known as a special emergency appropriation. So this governing body at several public meetings, I believe it was last year, did that. And what that allows us to do is split the cost of the whole process over 5 years. And so it's not just this firm that has expenses associated with it. We also have to update our tax maps. And the tax map process was handled by our engineer. So the cost of the tax map preparation and the updates, as well as the actual inspection and appraisal process, were all estimated, and then we went out to bid. We confirmed those numbers. We authorized them. We did a special emergency appropriation, and that is split up amongst over 5 years, 5 budget years. So starting in 2026 and into 9/30, 5-year payments.
So as a taxpayer, there's some additional tax I would expect to see to fund this effort then, or?
It's not necessarily an additional tax, it is an item that we have to budget for in our taxes, so that's something that we take into consideration. We have to balance our budget, we have to make sure that the tax levy does not exceed a certain amount. So in areas, so it's making sure that it's fitting within the budget. And, some things have to give, some things we're not able to afford, and some things we are forced to pay for by the state and by the county, and this is one of those things.
Okay. I mean, I just, at the outset, we talked about it being budget neutral, so I just to clarify that.
Well, I think he's referring to the assessments themselves, right, the assessments. So as he explained, and very
Revenue neutral.
yes, revenue neutral, right? So we have a budget that we prepared, and it's not just us. One thing I wanted to clarify that, Rob was mentioning the town. We collect the taxes, but we collect taxes for the county and for the schools and for the library as well. Our portion is a very small portion of all of that, but we're the collector for all those taxes.
Understood. Thank you. So I guess another question I had as you were going through some of the examples, and as we walked through the steps, and you mentioned what would be posted.
Please make sure you're speaking into the microphone.
Can everyone hear me okay?
It's all for the recording, not so much for the PA.
So, I guess maybe it's just the vocabulary that I'm not quite clear on, but you talked about a lot about the revaluations, right? And ultimately, you'll post new, or you'll mail new valuations to all of the taxpayers. But I think from my perspective, and going back to your examples, the rates are really what's critical, right? Because it doesn't matter to me if my home goes, from $800,000 to $1 million. What's important is what that ratio, that multiplier or coefficient or what have you is, right? Because that's the tax that's going to really be assessed to me, right? So.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. So, and I understand this with property owners. I think the most important thing to a property owner is your tax implications, right? I'm a taxpayer too, I get it. But for a revaluation, it's to make sure everyone's paying their fair share. So we really aren't concerned with taxes, although we know that's your biggest concern. We're going to try to help you with that, but we are concerned with the value. And so when that value increases, we want to make sure you're getting treated fairly and uniformly with the rest of the town. But yes, you won't know the implications until those rates come out and what that increase is of that net taxable value.
So in effect, and I understand that, maybe this is a question more for the committee than for you, because I understand there's a division of labor happening here, right? But at the end of the day, the change in valuation, it doesn't really tell me a whole lot, right? That rate is what I'm after, and I don't know, when I'm going to see that until will it be that, when my 2026 or 2027?
So if this goes on for the 2027 tax year, you're going to be paying a full year worth of taxes based on our assessment. Now, in any given year, this isn't my area, but I understand it, you pay taxes on the first 2 quarters based on last year's assessment. So my understanding is that's not going to change. Then the tax rate will come out in the summer of 2027. And then you'll pay the 3rd and 4th quarter. They'll readjust so your total equals the total amount paid on the new assessment.
I sort of get it, but I guess at the end of the day, when you talked about sort of disputing the valuation,
So that's a good question. So when you file an appeal, you can't appeal your taxes. You can only appeal your assessment. So if you feel your assessment's too high, you would have to file an appeal and use comparable sales to prove that the assessment's too high.
And is there a comparable process, for the townspeople, or it's just whatever that new tax bill is what it is? There's no ability to dispute it.
So the assessments, right? So as he explained, we go through a public hearing process, and we go through a very arduous and transparent public process when it comes to the budget, right? Our budget, the county, the schools, and the library, they all do the same thing. They set their budgets. And as he explained, we look at the budgets, a tax rate is set, and that tax rate is multiplied against the assessments. And that's what determines how much you're paying in taxes.
I understand.
Right? But so we can't predict 2027's budget, just as we can't predict 2026's budget. We try to do as much as we can for long-term planning and all, but we, by state law, we do budget year to year. And so when that budget is adopted and all those entities, those taxing entities adopt their budgets and then they certify their tax rates, then you'll be able to know exactly how much in property taxes you will be paying. However, those property taxes are gonna be based on the tax rate multiplied against the assessment. So you can only really dispute the assessment. The process by which you could maybe dispute the rate is through participation in budget processes at each of those entities. So if the county, you're not happy with the county budget going up, if you're not happy with the town budget going up, school budget going up, the library budget going up, you would go to each individual taxing entity and participate in that public process of the budget setting and budget adoption to convince them to do otherwise. But other than that, we don't look at the tax the assessment or the valuation and say, well, we're gonna maximize or minimize our taxes. We have obligations, police department, public works, sewer, engineering, all these different things that we have to pay for to provide the services for the residents, and we try to do it with as little fluff and as little room for increases, because we want to keep that tax neutral as much as possible.
I understand. I guess, let me try and clarify.
Just, I think I get what you're getting at. To help this question, I understand what he's saying, that the valuation tells you nothing because you don't know where you are relative to everybody else.
Right. The only thing I've
But
heard
if-
is that I can dispute the valuation, but in isolation, that doesn't help me because it doesn't inform me how much my taxes may go up or how
Yeah.
unlikely
So
they
if,
go down.
But that's kind of the status
but
quo.
if we know town-wide, so for example, if we know town-wide, everybody went up 50%, but you went up 65%, then chances are your taxes are gonna go up. If everybody went up 50% and your valuation only went up 25%, then relatively speaking, your taxes probably will go down. So I think it's that relative to where the town is, which I assume that information would come out also, that we don't have to calculate that residents will know that town-wide, the valuation went up X%, and then you individually went up, Y%, and then you could see where you are relative to everybody else. I think that's the only other information we have available.
That seems reasonable. I guess it just seems to me like, rather than just disputing the valuation, having that information that you just described would, I think, motivate me more to carry out a dispute, right? Because then I'd have at least a sort of trend sense of where I was going, right? So, again, I don't know how.
Yeah, and if I wasn't clear, at that step number 4, when we send you the property values, like I said, they're preliminary at that point because we are going to be available to have discussions about it. And at that point, we will know where the net taxable value is going. So we will be able to predict and estimate it. It's not going to be official, but we will be able to give you a very good idea if you're going up, down, or staying the same, and by how much.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, again, I didn't get that from what you said earlier.
I
Maybe
apologize.
just missed it.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious. I'm conscious other people want to ask things. I just wanted to ask 1 or 2 more things. The notion that we were out of kilter in terms of the assessments, if I understood it properly, and maybe I didn't, I thought I heard that it was largely based on sales information. Is that correct? In other words,
Correct.
okay. So,
And it's how the sales compare to the existing assessments.
okay. Gotcha. All right, one last thing, and then I promise to cede the floor. As you were going through the steps, you talked about a number of things, including, these neighborhood maps, and as important, I guess the blueprint of the home, exterior, interior, et cetera. Do these things exist? Is there a reference point for you to compare against? I recognize that people can build additions, and so in and of itself, even if the information's not available from a prior, process, there's, is there any basis on that, or is it purely, you know, what you find out now? I mean,
It's what we find out now. So we start from scratch, but obviously there are existing records. So if we need to research it or look something up, we certainly can, but we are starting from scratch.
okay. Do these exist anywhere? These?
Your property record card?
Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Hi, Maureen Kelly, Mountain Avenue. I have a question about land chiefly. Everybody's assessment shows two items. It shows land and it shows improvements. So my question is the value of a given amount of land the same all around the town, or does it depend on where you've carved out a particular neighborhood? I mean, in my case, it happens that the land is more valuable than the improvements. And I realize that's a little unusual for Chatham Township, but just wondering, I mean, it seems to me all over the place, we're creating the vacant land by tearing down the existing house. And so I didn't know whether, like, if you're a quarter acre, you're a half acre, you're a full acre, is it a set amount, or is it all depend on where in the township it is?
It's a great question. That's where most of the value comes from in most of our analysis. Great question. So each property in a given neighborhood will have the same land formula, not the same land value, same land formula, okay? So each neighborhood will be treated differently with the land, and the sales will indicate what land's worth in a given neighborhood. As you mentioned, we're gonna look at vacant land sales. A lot of times there aren't that many, so what we'll look for is tear down sales that you mentioned. I'm sure everyone knows tear down, you know, you see the house sold, you drive by a week later, it's knocked down. That property was purchased for the land. So we could take that information and figure out what land's worth. Now, I may be getting in the weeds with this, but what we typically do is two components to the land within a given neighborhood. So you got your site value and then your price per acre. Okay, so real quickly, the way I explain a site value in a given neighborhood is, it's kind of like your buy into the neighborhood. I like to use a builder, for example. If a builder came into a neighborhood and the simple fact that that lot met the zoning requirements and it could support a site, meaning they could put a house on it, right off the top of their head, they could say that lot is worth X amount of dollars just for the simple fact that they could put a house on it. That's your site value. So that's going to be consistent for that entire neighborhood. Now, as you mentioned, every lot is not the same size. So we'll value then, in addition to the site value, on a price per acre, okay? Usually we value the zoning requirement, and then everything else after that is an excess value. Let me explain. So let's say you live in an acre zone, to make it simple. That first acre is what's really important. That's the land that you need to support that site. Anything after that acre, it's nice to have a big lot, nice backyard, but you don't need that land to support the site. So that's typically valued at a lesser rate than the top acre. That's not getting into if the land could be subdivided. Like I said, this is where all our analysis comes from. But in a nutshell, to answer your question, so each neighborhood is treated differently. And yeah, there's a lot that goes into the land valuation.
So the couple things come to mind. I mean, there are streets in Chatham Township that don't have any streetlights. They don't have any curbs, very few storm sewers, and, you know, rarely get paved. You know, that kind of thing. And you kind of wonder if it's, you know, if that's taken into consideration.
Absolutely, and we're going to look at the sales to see if that supports it. So those are site influences. So I gave you examples of like the examples that everyone's really familiar with. But if your property does have one of these influences, you would see an adjustment on that land formula, whether it's 5% off, 10%. So all that will be on the property record card. And I know we're speaking general, but once the values are placed, we'll be happy to go through all these items with you.
So there's an application in the neighborhood for someone who has 2 acres and wants to subdivide it, but they're looking for a lot of variances. I don't know what an and this reval is coming up maybe before that's decided. I don't know, do they factor in potential? I mean, it's probably worth more to the seller if it's actually two separate buildable lots than one. And I don't know if that factors in.
So you said you still have to go through variances, so the approvals aren't set. So we value as of, in this case, October 1, 2026.
Okay.
So whatever is in place at
okay.
that time
Okay.
is how we have to value it.
Okay, but then would you look at potential of a property? Just what's there? Just what's there, not, it
If
could be
things
divided
change in
into
the
three?
future, the assessor has tools to change it going forward, but we can't value based on potential or what may happen.
Okay.
We have to value as of October 1st of the pre-tax
Okay.
year.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Hi, Ami Patel, Pike. She had one of my questions. I just have quick
I'm sorry, your
rapid
name
fire
again?
questions. What percentage of the houses do you expect that you're not going to go into? And how many of those houses do you think you underestimate what is actually there?
Good question. I mean, it's hard to say. We're going to do everything we can to get inside as many homes as possible. I hope to get into 80 or 90%. You know, only time will tell on that, being totally honest with you. Now, we estimate at the highest, most reasonable potential. So my anticipation is we're either going to be right on with our estimates, or we're going to be over, and therefore the property owner will have an incentive to call us to let us in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just asking if that's your practice. Like,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because, sorry
yeah,
to
no,
cut
no, no.
you off. So case law backs that process up where you have to, or you're obligated to value the highest, most reasonable potential. And the reason for that is, as you mentioned, if 80 to 90% of the property owners cooperate with the process, we have to give them the assurance that no advantage will be gained by not cooperating with the
Yeah,
process.
that's exactly
yeah.
what I was trying to get to. Perfect. How much is newness influencing assessment? So what's new? 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or last year? When you're looking at floor, basement finishings, and you had given examples about kitchens and bathrooms, what is the determination of that spec?
It's subjective, but a great question. We judge everything, your conditioning and your quality, based on the age of the home. Okay, so I like to use the example, let's say your house was built in 1960. We're walking into that house thinking of what a typical 1960s house would look like. So we're not comparing your kitchen and bathrooms to a brand new house that has a brand new kitchen and quality bathrooms. So if we walk into your 1960s house and it's your typical kitchen, your typical bathrooms, we consider that average. Now the assumption is that kitchens and bathrooms and maintenance has to take place over time. It's called deferred maintenance. So if you just replace your kitchen and you don't go above and beyond, that's not what we're looking for. That's still typical for the 1960s home. We're looking for the extremes. The example where you see a kitchen that looks like it belongs in a house that was just built in 2024, or a kitchen or a bathroom that's not really functioning, that it's old, it needs to be replaced. If you were to buy that home, one of the first things you would do is replace the kitchen or bathroom. So we're looking for the extremes relative to the year built. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And my last question is on transparency. So can we, and I'm just ignorant on like tax and stuff here, but can we see what current property values are now and what neighborhood lines are now, so that when we get our reports at stage 4, we kind of know what the delta is across the township?
It's all publicly available on the county's tax department website.
Are the lines drawn for the neighborhoods on there as well, or is he drawing them brand new?
We're drawing them brand new. As far as the old assessments, yes, we do post the old and the new assessment at that step. So that will be on our website.
So that's like done at the time, so we don't have to
Correct.
do our own homework.
Nope.
Okay.
We'll have that for. But to answer your question, is public record. You do.
And then the drawing of the neighborhood lines, give us a sense of how you do that?
Sure.
Like what influences?
So the first thing we usually start with is the zoning. Okay, that's a great starting point. Because if you really don't want to have a neighborhood split with zoning. So if one zoning requires a half an acre for a site and another zone has an acre, those right off the bat would be two separate neighborhoods because they're not similar. So we start with like the zoning map, that's like our base, and then within each zone, we typically just carve it up based on sales. Like this is a lot of times like a nice barrier, railroad, or Main Street. It's part of the whole appraisal practice. It's hard, like that's what we're gonna be doing over the next year.
So when you publish this, we'll get to see the new map.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Matt Day. I live on Mitchell Avenue. I had two what I hope are quick questions. When you mentioned negative influences, I was curious, given the Great Swamp being within, in some ways, part of Chatham Township, is that considered a negative influence or not? Is that factored into the... I'm not criticizing the swamp. I don't. It's great. It's wonderful. I just didn't know if that counted like a high tension wire or not. You know.
Yeah. So yes, I mean we would probably the sales would reflect that influence already. Does that make sense?
No. Hey, let me make sure. My understanding, and if I'm wrong about this, I apologize, but my understanding is like sometimes floor plans can't be changed, footprints can't be changed because you're touching the Great Swamp, or you talked about the livability or siteability. If you're closer to the swamp, there's more animals, more bugs, more things like that. Those could be conceived as perceived value differences in,
Correct.
And a negative. I'm just curious if that goes into the calculation, or is that like, nope, not our problem?
It's hard to answer. I have a pretty good guess whether it would or not, but we have to see the sales and do the analysis first.
Okay, so it runs up the numbers. Okay.
Correct.
And then
we will tell you that at step number 4.
So, but that would be something that would be part of like an appeal process. If you were
Yeah,
on
but that would be something you would
say,
see on your property record card as well. You had a land adjustment X for this purpose.
Okay, and then the other one was you said when, in terms of basements and attics, you're not going into any attics where there's the pull downs. If there is something up there that you think would be material to the value of the house, can you request someone go up there and look at it, or are you just kind of stuck?
Assuming you're referring to something negative?
Yeah.
Sure,
why not?
Positive out there, right? Come look at this, fantastic improvement I made.
Yeah, I mean, typically those aren't calculated into the square footage, so we don't go up there. But yeah, absolutely. If there's anything that you want to show the inspector, I would say yes. They have a tablet with them. We take exterior photos. We don't take interior photos unless the homeowner requests that. So that would be an example. If you do have something like that, yes, have
Okay,
them
so when
see if they could
inspectors-
peek up, take a picture. Absolutely.
Okay, when they come in to say, I want to show you this, and they'll know.
They'll know, but
Okay.
the reason why I was hesitating, they're not gonna go into the house and say, hey, open that up for me.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
totally fine.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Sunil Raval, Cedar Lane. Just from a high view perspective, there's reevaluation, there's reassessment. Can you just tell the difference and what the implications of each are? Like, does one factor into the other, and explain that?
Honestly, there really is no difference between a reevaluation and a reassessment when it comes to the scope of the work. The detail is exactly the same. The easy way to explain this is that for a reevaluation, outside firm is hired to have control over the process, and the assessor aids in the process. Whereas in a reassessment, the assessor is the bosses, if you will. They are in charge, and then an outside firm could be hired to aid the assessor in the reassessment. Other than that, the process of how it gets done is like, then in the analysis, it's the same.
So, I guess my question is, now that we're up for reevaluation, does that set the base value for the reassessments, so to speak?
I don't understand that question.
Like-
Sorry.
So what's you're saying that there's a reevaluation, so are they one of the same?
They're one of the
In
same.
terms
A lot
of for tax?
a lot of people use those terms interchangeably.
Okay. And then the second question is, you mentioned you're gonna be uploading a lot of information to your website, but rather than having to remember or put a calendar tickler, is the town gonna announce that some material updates have been posted to your website, or?
Yeah, so right now, what's going to be posted throughout now and probably for the next year is just the inspector locations and the status of where our inspectors are. Once we send those preliminary values out, that's when the website turns over, and that's when we post everything.
Okay.
So you'll know that by the letter.
Okay.
But I'm sure that, I'm going to assume the town's going to make
We're going
posts
to
on
be
their
in
website. Yeah.
constant contact with the firm, so as they progress through the different stages, we will know, and, both their website, as it gets updated, will also make similar updates.
Okay. Onto the town website? you
Yes.
said? Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Fred Poche, Robert Drive. My house is, somebody will pay me $1.5 million to knock it down. How do you evaluate the property? My house is worth nothing.
I mean, the example you were given is that the land to build an allocation will probably be heavy in the land. And again, I'm just going off of your assumption right now. We haven't done the
No, it's not an
analysis.
assumption, it's a fact. In
Yeah.
Rolling Hill, people are buying houses buying a house like mine at split level for $1.5 million, knocking it down.
Yeah, I mean, there
So
there
is the
are,
land worth
there,
$1.5 million, my house is worth zero. So why do you want to come into my house?
it's a great question, but, yeah, listen, so within a neighborhood, there could be a situation where the land is heavily weighted. And there's less importance on the improvement, but if we don't get in, we still have to make those assumptions. So there will be a difference if you have two identical homes, one both typical condition, if you will. We get into one and not the other, we're gonna have to make assumptions, so.
What happens if the house is worth nothing?
Right, but
What's the thing
If there, I hear what you're saying, but if there's a structure on it, it's worth something.
If you don't allow
If they
them
don't
into
get
the
in,
house.
they can't determine whether or not. I have no problem with somebody coming into the house. That's not an issue.
What's that?
That's not an issue. Getting into the house is not an issue. Okay? Don't put words in my mouth. Right? The question is, how do you evaluate it? I think there are 3 houses. Father Kevin lives in one house, number 6. And there are 3 other houses on Robert Drive that people are leaving, notes in our mailbox, knocking on the door all the time. So if the fact is that it's worth $1.5 million to knock down my house, how do you evaluate the property? It's not.
Yeah, I think I
theoretical.
answered it.
It's what it is.
So hopefully, if we both agree your house or your property is worth $1.5 million, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Your
That's what
final
the going
assessment,
rate
your
is.
final.
Somebody just put a house up on the market for 2.1, which is for not.
Right. Yeah, so, your house's final value should be around 1.5, and the land will be heavily weighted in that scenario. I can't give you the break rent down right now. That's gonna take place over the next, 14 to 16 months.
The other thing is, this has nothing to do with you, but I'm appalled that you wash your hands of all of this, the township committee. As our rateables in the town go up, and they will go up, we're going to pay a larger share of the county tax and a larger share of the school tax. And that's not been addressed at all. And I don't know what this is costing. You didn't say that, what this whole thing is costing, but I don't know what the rush is to comply with the county's directive, right? So what are they gonna sue us?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
I mean, to
Let's
just
sue
clarify,
us.
we're not washing our hands of anything, because this isn't necessarily a bad thing. This is something that has to happen.
This is
by
a bad
state
thing
or
because
code.
our school taxes, our
But
share.
this is a time for questions, and for right now, for
Our share-
professionals, we can do commentary later, but right now, this is an opportunity for questions.
Can I do
for our
commentary later now?
At the end
Tonight?
of the presentation, yeah, there's an opportunity.
Does
at the end
anybody
of
else have any comments?
Questions, we're in the question
Huh?
period right now. so
Questions?
Questions for our professional firm about the revaluation process.
Sunil Val, Cedar Lane. I just wanted to clarify, the September 23rd meeting, is this the same presentation?
September 25th, yeah, so
Sorry.
that's Thursday. So we wanted to provide some variety because tonight's Tuesday, and with this meeting, but because we also record these, we wanted to provide some variety, not everybody can do Tuesday, so that one's gonna be on a Thursday, slightly later time, but it is essentially the same exact presentation for people who could not make it. And again, if there's questions after for them, you can contact them separately, and it will be online as well for you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Do we have an actual timeline of like when, maybe I missed this, I understand when the tax rates will go into effect, but the timeline of when the assessments are starting or the evaluation process is beginning? Ballpark.
So,
maybe not.
so just to make sure I understood the terminology, so the inspections will start shortly. The inspections will probably go through till next year, okay?
That was pretty much the question.
Okay,
So
yeah,
starting
The
within
inspections.
the next month, 2 months?
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to, the person that will be coming to the property is an inspector collecting data. They are not the appraisers, they are not the person that's putting the value on the home.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm probably gonna say
Your name?
something that I don't know. Janet Colina, Mitchell Ave, another Mitchell person. I am very concerned. I'm hitting the senior citizen age, and I'm wondering a couple things. Thinking of other seniors in this town, where people have already said knockdowns are going for 1.5. There's headhunters all the time at our properties. Do you have any data or any information about how these have impacted towns and seniors? From when you've done this in other towns?
Well, I mean, we assess the property based on what it's worth. How it's occupied, to answer your question, no. No, we wouldn't have that.
I was just curious about that. How much Chatham has had a lot of trees knocked down? There's a lot of open space. People are selling their open land, knocking trees down. There's, over by Green Village, I think there's one that's, I don't know, 7 acres. They're probably gonna be knocking down trees instead of the town buying this open space to preserve the situation in the town that we all moved here for. River Road is knocked down. This is a comment, I know. But it does impact the quality of life in this town, and I'm wondering how does that factor into your assessment? In my opinion, Chatham has, although you have big houses, the quality of life in the town has come down because of all the trees being knocked down. So how does that factor in?
If it does play a factor, it would show up in the sales.
So there's no quality of life measure, it's all based on just
Correct. If properties are selling for 1.5 in a given neighborhood, you would expect the fair market value of that property to be 1.5. If there's influences that are going on that affects the sale price by 10% and lowers the sale prices, we would see that, recognize it, and base our assessments on those sales. So we look at the sales closest to October 1st of the pre-tax year. So any influence would be seen in the sales that are taking place.
And I know that the taxes, someone mentioned, you know, the school does their budget, you know, the county does their budget, the state does their budget. Two things, you mentioned the state mandated this, and somebody else mentioned the county did. So who mandated it, and what public body, mandated that, or voted on it?
The order comes from both.
So there's a state statute that governs how this process goes and sets the rules statewide, and then the county tax board reviews municipality situations within, and then the county tax board enters an order, and it's in conjunction with the state, but
And
it's.
the county tax board is not voted, they're not voted in, I'm just curious. Are they voted in?
They're
Just wondering.
appointed. They're appointed.
Okay, just wondering about that. When you do these, it's supposed to be revenue neutral. When you do this, do you see a bell curve that 25% will go up, 50% will stay the same, and 25% go down? Is there any kind of data like that?
It's different for every town. We'll have that at probably step 4. We'll know how many properties are going up, down, and staying the same.
Is there, I mean, you've done this in
I-
how many different?
A lot of people use a rule of thumb of a third, a third, a third. That doesn't always hold true. But that would be a good rule of thumb. A third go up, a third go down, a third stay the same.
But there's no data from your company on it, or the town has assessed about how this is gonna impact various people in the town? Generally.
We have data on every town. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna happen here. We'll have that data once the assessments are completed.
I'm just wondering, towns similar to Chatham in neighborhood, proximity to the city, things like that, how that plays out,
Chatham Borough went through the process last year.
and how that play out.
I think it was about a third, a third, a third.
I think in the spirit of trying to answer questions, we're trying to allow for our professionals to give you facts and some guidance as to what the process. They haven't done the work yet, and that work will commence shortly. So I would take less stock in a professional giving you an assumption or a prediction, because at the end of the day, he hasn't started the work for the township. While he has done numerous other municipalities, there are some differences. So I can appreciate his reluctance to say, well, gee, this is what I think your town's going to, because then now he's making a statement that not necessarily based on facts or any work that he's conducted to this point. So, I appreciate a sense of anxiety, because this is a townwide massive effort. We're talking about taxes. So I appreciate it's not lost on the committee.
Right.
And so what we're trying to do is provide venues where you can get your questions answered. And candidly, not every question can be answered because the work hasn't been done yet. So at the back end of this, once the work has been done, what's been communicated is you have avenues to pursue in the event you feel differently about how the end product came about. I'm referencing the appeals, the ability to go to the professional, and I think you make yourselves available for conference, sit down, what have you, for
Absolutely.
for dialogue, right? So
We have the bandwidth, and we're willing and able to meet with every property owner in town. We do these meetings over the phone, in person. We could do it virtually, so we make ourselves available to meet and go over the property record card and how we came up with the assessment on each property.
Thanks. Just one more question.
You could just state your name again?
Ami Patel Shunpike. Okay, sorry, I don't mean to assume the worst of the system in gaming, but I have another gaming question. So you're gonna start assessments now, and you go all the way till October next year, correct? Or not assessments, but evaluations.
I think you're, just to make, inspections.
Yeah, inspections, sorry,
Correct.
inspections. Let's get vocabulary correct. So inspections. What is the township doing to ensure that people that have construction plans in place and improvements and tear downs, like say I get my house inspected tomorrow, am I done? And then I can go and improve my house?
No, because the assumption is
So
you're
how
taking
do
out a
you- how
permit.
do you,
We
like,
work with the
work
assessor,
with
so
this?
yes, so we always do.
To
the-
audit your own work, and that's the
Yes.
question I'm.
We go back, so first and foremost, if there's work being done when the inspector is there,
Mhm.
we tag it to go back to closer to October 1st to see what work has been completed.
Right.
In addition to that, we also research any permits that have been taken out to see what work has been done and whether that work is completed.
I really appreciate the time and the forum. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one other question
Sure.
too. So for homeowners who are not residents, maybe they're extended vacations, maybe they live in different states, and you've provided a couple opportunities to be at their property, they're not at their property, understandably, you're going to the highest reasonable potential. I guess, how many steps for them to allow you in to their homes, because they may want still for you to do that. Will there be opportunities for them to do that, even if they're
honestly,
present?
plenty of opportunities. We never pull the inspectors out. So all the way up until step number 6, until the information is turned over, we have inspectors in the field. So we'll do inspections after that letter, that preliminary letter goes out, and during our informal meetings, we're still doing inspections. And quite frankly, we do get into a lot more interior after those values go out. So they'll have a lot of opportunity. And listen, if there's special cases where they know they're going to be on an extended vacation or something, if they call our office, we could try to schedule an appointment at a time that they're home.
So it's
your name again?
Warren, and I'm from Runnymede Road. And just to pick up on what you said, I mean, as we've been talking about this, the process at some level, it feels like something that probably a lot of us just recently went through to determine our plumbing pipes, our lead pipes, and so forth that need to be remediated. And I don't know what anybody else's experience was, and this is as much to the committee as to you all, but there was very poor communication. You know, I think it was put out, you know, hopefully, you know, with the best of intentions, but you know, so much of our lives these days is, you know, press X for this and so forth, right? And I went through a very difficult time, and then when I finally got through, I had multiple people returning to my house, even after they had inspected my pipes. And at some level, there's a parallel here, right? So I guess I just want to understand that, you know, because the township, you know, ultimately has a, you know, is the greatest beneficiary of all this, who would we be dealing with? Is it with this gentleman's firm? Is there some recourse to go back to the township if we're getting this sort of, you know, we're not getting the communication that sounds like it's going to play out as smoothly as you described? Who is there a hierarchy, or are we entirely left to our own devices to kind of, you know, just sort through our own frustrations? And how would you anticipate that kind of going?
Sure. Well, I would imagine that the vendor would have some information made available, telephone numbers, points of contact, individuals that you can reach out to. And at the end of the day, we are here for you. You can certainly reach out to us. You can reach out to Mr. Shahadi. Our information is on the township website. And part of what we're here to do is advocate for you. So if you have if you're having a challenge or issues, please do bring that to our attention, and we will take it up the appropriate flagpoles, as will Mr. Shadi and the township staff.
I think it would be good to highlight that, right? Because you know, I'm not saying it's going to play out the same way, but
sure,
it's got, you know, some strong parallels to what, you know, many of us just went through. And you know, again, I don't want to sound like a martyr, but at the end of the day, it feels more and more that we as individuals are being asked to chase down people, and it feels like, you know, obviously in good faith, I assume I'll make the call, I'll make the connection, everything will resolve itself. But my experience hasn't been that. So I just think it would be useful if it's this gentleman here to, you know, to call him out as somebody to, you know, maybe not make the first call to, but to, you know, if we're having difficulty, you know, what do they say the definition of insanity is, right? If I keep calling and get no results, I'm going to look to you to grease the wheels a little bit, right? And go back to the firm and say, listen, you know, if it's an isolated taxpayer, obviously, I could be a crank. But if you're getting enough of this information, I'm just looking for somebody else to advocate.
So this is just a nuance, right? The pipe inspections, that's the water company, right? That's like you dealing with Toyota, Ford, Verizon, Comcast. We have nothing to do with utility companies. They are not our vendor. They are you're their customer. We have no involvement with utility companies. This is different. This is a vendor that we've hired on your behalf, on behalf of the township, that answers to us.
Okay.
And they are here to work for us, but for you collectively as taxpayers, because what they're doing, even though there's frustration, people are like, oh, the assessment's going up, my assessment's going down. They're doing this for the benefit of the township and every taxpayer, to make sure that everybody is paying their fair share, that it's uniform, that it's done consistently, so that way the taxes are, the properties are assessed correctly. So they are here for our benefit, for your benefit. If there's any issues with them, and I don't believe there's going to be any issues with them, because they've worked out a lot of kinks in other municipalities, but if there are any issues, you are always welcome to, I am the one who's responsible for ensuring that any contracts this governing body awards are executed and handled appropriately. Now, the tax assessor over there is Glenn, please wave, right, Glenn? He's the department head who handles the assessor's department. You can always reach out to him,
Well,
and if there's issues
I'm
there,
sorry to
then there's
interrupt,
always me as well.
I just
and
think
we
I would like a point of contact, right? I don't want to have to go to different people in the government. As you pointed out, you awarded the contract, and I get it, right? It's a different entity. You have no connection to the utility company. I brought it up simply because many of the aspects are the same, right? Inspectors come to the house, they leave the card, they come back, you know.
But it's different because there's no real middle person between you and the utility company, right? So
Understood.
whereas here, we are the entity, so as I said, right, because we did post something on our website about this, there was a letter that went out, and the person that signed that letter is right there, and the number at the top of the letter was his number and his information on that letterhead, and that is the tax assessor, right? So it was our information on that letter with contact information for the vendor. And then we did put something out on the website that did again provide that information, right down at the bottom, left-hand side, Glenn Sherman.
Yeah.
Right? So he's the, so that's, I'm just clarifying this.
You're making, right? In other words, when I look at this, and I'll give it a closer read, so.
But sir, you said you want us to give a point of contact. That's what I'm saying. We mailed out that point of contact, and it's on the website. And again, his contact information, my contact information on the website. Anybody can email me. My email address is administrator@chathamtownship.org. Again, for anybody that's watching, administrator@chathamtownship.org. Our website is chathamtownship.org, and my phone number, direct line, 973-635-3212, 973-635-3212. So if there's any issues, do not hesitate, please, to reach out to me.
All right, all I'm asking for is the transparency, right? So,
That's what I'm
I
all
mean,
about.
I do see your name at the bottom of the letterhead, but I don't automatically make believe that you're the guy that I need to contact if I can't get any satisfaction with the company that you've hired, right? That's all.
Yeah, no, that's
the
what
point
I
I'm
wanted to
trying
clarify that. It's a good.
I would say simply as a matter of steps, the vendor would be the first point of contact, and I'm sure they'll avail themselves. That's our expectation and their standard to avail themselves as part of this process. And if you feel you've reached an unsatisfactory point, please, all 5 of us here can certainly be reached,
And again,
including
and
Mr. Shahadi.
I recognize that there's a distinction, and I'm glad you brought it up, because ultimately you are the middleman in this process, right? Is what's been made clear to me. Whereas in my, lead pipe example, I was stuck, fighting the utility company. So I'm glad to hear that I can contact any of you. It may not be necessary. It's just good to know.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I now invite anyone else to the microphone should they have any questions for our professionals regarding the presentation. If we do not have anyone else, thank you very much. Is there anything else that you'd like to?
Anyone online may possibly,
Yes, Mr. LeConte, do we have any hands raised online?
Let me check. No, we don't have any hands raised online.
Great.
Can I just ask one last quick question? How long, when an inspector comes in, how long should we expect them to take, for the inspection to take?
It honestly depends on the size of the house. The exterior is more time consuming. The interior is usually about 5 to 15 minutes. Once they get into the inside of your home, they're not taking any measurements. They're just really doing a walk around and taking notes about the property, about the house, I should say.
Okay.
So on
thank
average, 10 minutes or so.
You. Mm-hmm.
Any members, other members of the committee?
No, thank you
Any
very
other
much.
questions? Anything else, Stacy?
I'm good, thanks.
Thank you. If there's nothing else from Appraisal Systems? Sure, no, okay, great. Mr. Shadi, I now seek your counsel. We do have a full docket here before we get to the second hearing of citizens. In light of that fact and understanding that we have a resident with a squarely with with some statements to be made, how might you suggest we handle that? Is there a possibility to front it and offer that platform up?
Sure, but although I do think that, oh,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, Mayor, you can certainly have another hearing of citizens, if you like, but at this point, are the
Yes.
firm, you guys are, they're good to go?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for your time and the presentation.
And Mayor, are we keeping it at this point to general comments on this specific item?
I'm sorry?
Are we keeping it to comments on this particular
On this
matter?
particular item only, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll reserve any other comments or statements not related to the revaluation during the second hearing of citizens as is stated on the document. So then, at this time, if there are any statements by members of the public that you'd like to be made in connection to the revaluation that was just covered, please do come before the microphone. You okay?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, great.
I apologize.
I welcome you to the microphone.
Rick Motion, Robert Drive. You know, my house, it was built, it's 7 years old. I'm living in Chatham Township for 36 years. Whether my house is in the same shape, it's the original bathrooms or original kitchen that it was when it was built or not, makes no difference. And when I say you're washing your hands of, the fact is that our county tax rate is gonna go up because our ratables have gone up, and we're gonna get a bigger share of the county bill. We're gonna get a bigger share of the school tax. So you push it by rushing into this, and I don't know, rushing into this, what that means. Not saying, you know what, like some towns are saying, we're not gonna build affordable housing, we're gonna fight you all the way. We have always complied with our requirements. But this is one time when you are pushing senior citizens out of the town. And there's no doubt about it, because, my taxes are gonna go up. I'm gonna be in the 1/3 that goes up because some knucklehead is willing to pay an exorbitant amount of money for a piece of property and squash a big house on it and sell it for $4 million. So. I guess nobody has anything to say. And how much was this costing?
I want to say total with everything, the tax maps, and, I mean, I want to estimate, it's on our website, we did put it on our website. About 700 with tax maps and the reval, about 750, somewhere around there.
The last thing, I was handed a piece of paper when I came in by a gentleman, and it says our tax rate has gone up 27% over the last 3 years.
A politician handed that to you.
That's
who's
incorrect.
Probably running for office, sir.
In all due respect, I think if our tax bills went up 27%,
Our municipal taxes.
we are doing something yes, that's correct. Well, I mean,
I
so
would
it's
think
not
that
the
you're
total
doing
bill,
something
right,
very
so,
terribly wrong.
yes.
And this is an AOC Township Committee.
So you would,
I would dispute the facts on that sheet of paper, sir. Those aren't correct.
Well, what percentage did our taxes go up over the last 3 years?
Well, sir, there's many ways you can analyze how much taxes went up. You
Our
can look at it
municipal tax.
individually, right, but you can look at it individually, you could look at it as a tax rate, you could look at it, there's so many, that question is a very loaded question. I'd be happy to meet with you, and I've only been here for. No, it is a loaded question,
Not
sir.
at all.
Well, if
What-
you know
what
more than
else?
me about it, then why don't you tell me, sir?
I'm sorry?
If you know more about it than me, then why are you asking me the question? Because I'm giving you the facts, but you know
What the rate is.
Okay, well, so that's what I'm telling you,
So
that
you
that
don't
is
know
a
what the
loaded
rate has
question.
gone up either.
I do, but you're saying over 20 years,
No,
I've
I
done
said over the
all
last 3 years.
Mr. Shoddy, if I may.
I'm happy to meet with you, sir, and I can go over all of those numbers with you, so we can give you exact information.
I'm being very nice, and you're not being very nice.
I'm not.
You have a poor attitude towards the taxpayer.
Okay, sir, I apologize. I don't mean to have.
Mr. Shadi, if I may, I'm trying to stay focused on the matter at hand, which is the assessment. I understand your question. It has to do with, I guess, municipal tax portion of it. If you'd like more information on it, you certainly
Can anybody
get you
answer that
information
question?
on that.
How much has the rate gone up over the last 3 years?
On the municipal tax portion?
Municipal taxes.
I would have to
That's
get that
Mayor,
information for
I've
you.
kindly offered to you, sir, to meet with you to give you that information.
I don't want to meet with you.
Okay, well then, I
Right.
can't give you that information.
When I was on
right
the
now.
township committee and the mayor, I could tell you how much the rate went up over the 6 years that I was on the township committee.
Okay.
Okay? It's a simple question, and it's, again, I find it hard to believe that none of you can say what the tax rate has gone up over the last 3 years. Not even a guess. It's not a loaded question, it's just, somebody handed me a piece of paper, said the rate went up 27%. You say he's a politician, he's a Republican.
I didn't say he was a
Democrats.
Republican. I didn't say that, sir.
No, I said.
Okay, you said that, so you're putting words in my mouth. I didn't say that.
No, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to the
All right,
township committee. Say it.
I can say the average increase across the board last year was possibly $200 a year.
What percentage, how much did the tax
Very
rate go
small.
up over the last 3 years?
A few years ago, it didn't go up at all.
Over the last 3 years, how much did the tax rate go up? I don't care, a few years ago, when I was on the township committee, 1 year went up 0.
I would love,
Yeah, I think part of the problem,
Again.
1 year went up 7%.
it does not.
So the total, from my recollection, right, was a few percentage points for the total. I'm not sure what that 27% is, but I'd be happy to take a look at it and get you whatever information you need. But again,
I'll leave this with you.
I would, if you would like to make additional statements, please reserve them for the second hearing
I just
sessions.
want to answer my question.
Yeah, but I would like to answer your, I would like to respond to some of the statements you made, again, with regard to the assessment, right?
How
So-
about we start with how much did the tax rate go up over the last 3 years?
Yeah, I think under
Mayor, as
3%.
I said, I'm not gonna answer that question at this point because I don't wanna give incorrect information. I'm happy to meet with any resident.
Yeah.
Or I can get.
I think we don't track things by, 3 years, 4 years. We don't have, that was a random request and we don't have the 3-year number, and we can go back certainly and provide any numbers and provide an explanation as to what was going on over the course of that time period. I will address,
It's very-
specifically when you came up, when you,
And even-
yeah, on the topic of where we started, the topic of the reval and the impacts on the reval, I absolutely feel your pain on that. We're looking at the same thing, that those we have an older house, and the values in the community have gone up dramatically. You could just look at Zillow and, get a sense of, the whole idea is to bring it up to market. And I understand what you're saying relative to other county. My husband keeps complaining about it too. And what I tell him is, think of it the other way, is that for the last 5 years, at least, we've been over that 80% criteria that would cause us to have a reval, and it's been about 5 years that they finally came around and said, you've got to get this done, and now it's not even going to implement till 2027. So in some respects, those of us who are going to go up have been saving. I know it's not going to give you any peace of mind, but that's the offset. The reality is, it's bringing everybody to a market value, to a level place, a fair place, relative at the county level, relative within Chatham Township. And it's going to be painful for some of us, but that's what it's been doing. So really the offset is that everybody else was subsidizing us for the last few years. Again, didn't satisfy my husband. I'm sure it's not going to satisfy a lot of others, but that's the reality.
And to your earlier comments about what you believe to be the price of your home relative to the value of your property relative to the improvements on that, I think part of the way that's addressed is by looking at the neighborhoods, right? So I think they're trying to cluster like-minded homes, like-minded dynamics to homes in the same sub-pool in order for them to run whatever algorithm there is amongst like-minded, like characteristic homes, or at least the similar dynamics that are going on with that bundle of homes. I think that's part of the process for which it would address things that are going on, for example, in your neighborhood. I think you said Rolling Hills. So I think that it is a practice and a process that I think has been refined over decades, and I think they understand the notion of knockdown home values. I think they understand that homes are being bigger, so built bigger. So I think they have a process in place by which I think they'll address some of your concerns. And I think at the end of the day, I appreciate, my home, I think you sort of metaphorically reference your home being worth nothing and your lot's $1.5 million. I might look at it the other way and say, well, gee, the land values have been gone up appreciably. That is ultimately a good thing. I would submit to you, I think town-wide, home values have been going up because I think there's lots of, it's a very desirable place to live. There are people coming in here wanting to buy homes, which are elevating prices because the school systems are robust. I think it's an appealing community for folks to live, to raise families, perhaps even to retire. I'm not sure, but it appears to me that there's certainly demand-supply imbalance. There's a lot of people who want to live here within the fixed stock of homes that we've got. Hence, land values and/or property values are appreciating. That may be a small way to address your statement about, well, gee, my lot's worth $1 million, my home's worth nothing. It's a very valuable lot, and it's become that because it's a very desirable place to live. I think at the end of the day, the process it's going to be multi-year long, as the professional stated. There is going to be some consternation. There's going to be some anxiety because I think it clearly involves inspectors entering people's homes. They're collecting data, and I think at the end of the day, before and we're all looking for answers. I think the professional was trying to be diplomatic and trying to respond to everyone as best he can. But at the end of the day, he doesn't really have some of the answers that the members of the public are seeking because the work hasn't been done yet. I think he can give some guidelines based on what he's seen in the past, but nothing can certainly be anchored to what may or may not happen in the township until the work is done. And I think part of what they do is make it all available once it is done so that people can scrutinize it. And I think it sounds like it's tabulated, organized in a way that might facilitate those efforts. And by the way, if there's a disagreement, there are ways for which you can elevate that. You can reach out to professionals. There are other pathways you can pursue to challenge the assessment or the process by which you got there.
Yeah. Difference because whether I let them in or not, and of course I'll let them in, but whether I do or not, the value is what the value is. Doesn't make a difference. And the fact of the matter is, it's a knockdown. The land's worth $1.5 million. House worth nothing.
Yeah, that may or may not be true, but I think to my earlier point, and that's why they're looking at theoretically, I think, based on what I heard and the process that they're doing is they're going to be looking at a particular home, in this case your home, relative to the other homes that are going through those same dynamics, right? Yeah, they're not going to be looking at your home and another home, a 5-acre home in Green Village, for example. That's why they're clustered together. That's why they do it in neighborhoods.
5 acres in Green Village, they can't expand that footprint.
I understand. It's a little bit of apples oranges, which is why I think they do it by clusters or neighborhoods, right? There's an understanding that they're trying to group together or bundle together like-minded homes or like-minded moving parts or dynamics to the homes in that particular grouping or neighborhood, right? That way it makes sense.
But when you all say the county's going to strike their budget and the school board's going to strike their budget and there's nothing you can do about it, there isn't, but we're going to pay more in taxes. And it's something that you should make everybody aware of. Our rates go up. Our percentage of the county and the school tax is going to go up. And that's all I have to say about anything, but I can't believe that nobody can tell me what the tax rate has been for the last 3 years. I find it appalling that nobody can tell me that. Thank you for everything.
Well, the information, if anyone would like that information, we can certainly provide the precise information and whatever supporting details it would like, you can reach out to any one of us or Mr. Shoddy, and we can address that for you in a way that's satisfactory. If there's any other member of the public would like to come forward with any statements or comments, please do so. Otherwise, I will close the matter on the assessment itself, and we shall move on to the next item on the agenda. Mr. Shoddy?
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
The reports?
First one, under administration, we do have a request for fire prevention fee update ordinance. We have our fire marshal, our fire official here with the subject matter expert next to him, Christine Morgan. She's the technical assistant in the construction office, but also the administrative assistant as well to that office. Have a seat up here. Thank you. So in the agenda packet was a memo that explained the request in more detail. It reviewed surrounding communities and also provided an analysis of the work that's involved and why the justification for that fee update, which hasn't been updated in a very long time and is not on par with other municipalities. Mr. Rothenberger, our fire official, is here with Christine Morgan if there's any questions.
Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
And similar to what we did with the construction fee review, this is an opportunity to, take into consideration his request, which will help not only the office and the township, but also the residents in some ways, because there are some provisions here that would be allowed that are not currently in our ordinance, such as sort of last minute, we'll call it emergency requests. People want inspections and how to deal with re-inspections and additional inspections, all that there. Based on this conversation tonight, we would then have our township attorney work with our staff to draft an ordinance for additional review later on, but this is to give us some guidance, the staff and the professional team, on how to proceed. Would you like Jim to give any information, or would you like to start with any questions?
Yeah, toss it out for questions amongst committee members.
Long overdue.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a good breakdown with all of the different comparisons of the other towns and everything. It left little questions in my mind as the result of that, so thank you for that thorough reporting. Yeah, I actually don't have any questions, so.
And they're all within state guidelines as well. They're within state guidelines. I think this will be a tremendous service to the community. As you know, this is a very desirable community, and when something comes on the market, homes are turning over quickly, sometimes in a very short period of time, and they don't have the ability, they get frustrated if they can't have an inspection less than 2 weeks. So this will give the ability for those individuals as a service to be able to have the official to go out to do those inspections less than 2 weeks and sometimes in 3 days, which will be very nice. I can speak to that personally. I think they'll be very happy residents.
Last time they were raised was in 2011. Okay.
Yeah, oftentimes we look at these things in a vacuum, so we do generally ask for to contextualize it, and in cases like this, it's always very helpful to come up with a matrix, if you will, of similar or exact fees across different municipalities. So that gives us a better way to understand the numbers that we're looking at.
Okay.
So that's most appreciative.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
The initial inspection comes with a re-inspection is included. Is that what I read? Is that correct? I did have a question after all.
No, the re-inspection is in $50.
Okay.
It'll be fair, $50. Yeah, I think the old may have stated that, but, yeah, no.
Okay.
I think the re-inspection is just if they fail the initial inspection.
Yes. We tried to
Right,
inform them.
I'm sorry, that's what I meant. So the initial, that's, sorry,
Yeah. We give them enough enough information, so we hope that doesn't
Correct.
happen.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything else? See, this is why I make sure you guys prepare very thorough memos.
Oh my God.
See? No, I do wanna give tremendous credit to Jim, Christine, and Tracy in the office, and also Greg for his help in preparing this, so thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
feel free to reach out to us anytime.
Sorry you couldn't.
I have copies if
Sorry you
need
couldn't
them.
have covered that in the beginning part of the
Well,
meeting.
we tried.
Thank you for having us.
Good night.
Thanks. Thanks. See you in the morning. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Have a good night, thank you. Mr. Shoddy, on
Thank you.
next order of business.
Okay, coming up in the next, meeting or two, we'll be reviewing the employee handbook, finalizing that with the, labor attorney. That is an update that we do every 2 years in accordance with our, joint insurance fund guidelines and recommendations. I will have a draft for you hopefully by the next, agenda meeting. So it'll be in, review in executive session if necessary, and then hopefully a resolution in October. Any questions on that though? Okay. We do have a need for a resolution at the next meeting to authorize 2 settlement agreements related to opioid settlements. These are national and statewide settlements we are a party to. We were a party to years ago, opted in. Not every municipality qualifies also to be part of these, but we do. We've been a member of some other settlement agreements and have been deriving some grant monies as a result of that. These are 2. One of them is a settlement agreement with Purdue, and another one is a conglomerate, a number of other pharma companies. Our attorneys reviewing the agreements. They are sort of standard agreements that really don't have much flexibility for us, but they dictate how we can participate and the timelines and what we are allowed and not allowed to do with those funds once they are received. Tiana, is there anything, Ms. Corey, anything you want to add?
No, I can, if anyone wants to know, I can tell you the manufacturers that the second settlement is with Alvogen, Amneal, Apotex, Hikma, Indivior, Mylan, Sun, and Zydos.
Imagine coming up with those names.
None of which I've ever heard of before. So that's the second package.
Any questions on that? Okay. The other item is our Colony Pool end of season report was provided in the packet. It outlined membership, revenues received, and other operations expenses. Any questions related to that? And I will add, we have a survey every year, at least since I've been here. I can't speak to before that, but we've been doing a survey immediately at the close of the season. We provide members till the end of the month to respond, and then we'll collect those responses, provide you with a tabulation as well as the full detail of the responses. That should be available in the October workshop packet. Are there any questions on the end of season report? Okay. Thank you. Under the clerk's section, we received the report from the clerk. I don't believe there were any questions on that. Anything there? We will discuss health department contract in executive session, but I will add that we are anticipating, because the contract we did, I believe there was an 18-month contract when the agreement with Bloomfield terminated. We entered into an 18-month contract with Union Township for that shared service. That ends at the end of this year, so we're trying to beat that end and have some next step and an agreement to immediately succeed that. So hopefully in the next 2 to 3 months we will have a resolution to authorize an agreement for health department services. Under construction, our attorney and our construction official are still working together. It's a very comprehensive ordinance update that we reviewed a few months ago, so there's a lot of work to be done on that. Most likely we will be introducing that in January because there's a lot of work and we want to make sure that everything is done in accordance with state guidelines and that you have a good chance to review that final draft. But just giving you an update that it's still on the agenda, it's still on our radar, and introduce that ordinance. Any questions on the construction report? Discussion items there? Okay, moving on to engineering. We will have a number of resolutions that we're anticipating at the next meeting. First would be a resolution for that interlocal agreement with the county, which we discussed for Hillside Trail drainage improvements. The attorney received a template of that agreement with the county, reviewing that, and we will have that for your review at the next meeting, but it's fairly boilerplate, and again, that is the county agreeing to cover all the costs of that. We're just taking on the share of going out to bid and being the lead agency on that. Then after we enter into that interlocal, we want to go out to bid, so that way we don't waste any time. There will be a resolution for your consideration to authorize the bidding for those drainage improvements. And then also authorizing bidding for the Esternay ADA improvements, which we reviewed. And then finally, a resolution to authorize a change order for striping. That is to account for the exact costs. So when we do the initial award through the county co-op for the stripers and for the pavers, it's based on estimates, and we understand that field conditions may vary. Because we did a resolution, ended up being slightly more. We're talking about not even $1,000 or so increase. We do need a change order. And then we are expecting the bids for the pool wall rebid. We rejected them a month ago because they were too high. We are hoping the rebids come in at a much more reasonable cost, and then we can make an award. But if not, then we would have to reject and authorize another rebid. So that is anticipated one way or another for us to take some action at the next meeting. Any questions on any of those or Mr. Rushkey's report?
So the pool wall, I mean, we're in September now, so, I mean, the length of the time on that, I think we mentioned this before, it's gonna take a little while before we award the contract before the construction begins. You're looking probably more for following year?
Most likely,
okay.
Yeah, most likely. If for any reason our engineer feels that we can be aggressive and get it done, but if there's any risk to it affecting the operations, we don't want to do that. But there's work involved in it because we get the bids, we want to review the bids, make sure that even just because there's a good, let's say there's a good low bid, we want to make sure that it's also a responsible bidder and that they've complied with all the requirements. And our attorney reviews the bids as well. And then we have a pre-con meeting, there may be ordering of supplies. So once we have more of that information, we'll be able to make a recommendation on that. But, you know, we'll receive the bids, regardless if they come in, we have to take some sort of action by law within a certain time frame to either award or reject.
Okay.
Yeah, so we certainly appreciated the finite window of time during which this potential project could go underway.
Yes.
So we made, we followed through on planning steps to be in a position to do that. Unfortunately, the process by which the bidding and the vendors, the results of that amounted to a single bidder, if I recall, where numbers were astronomically higher than what we had projected. So I think we're left with no other reason than to formally reject the bid and restart the process to go out for rebid.
Correct.
Right. I did have a couple items on the matter of the Esternay ADA improvements.
Yes.
Just to close, or maybe a continuance of prior inquiry or conversation. We were made aware of it was asked whether or not grants that would support ADA projects could be pursued, and there may or may not be one, and that is being looked into. To the extent that we can capitalize on that, we certainly will make every effort to do so.
Unfortunately, John and I had our meeting today, and we both reviewed the terms of the grant, and we don't feel that the current grant, which is one that we had referenced before, it's called the Recreational Opportunities for Individuals with Disabilities, that would not, this would not apply or meet the requirements for that grant.
Okay, understood. Now, with regard to all these, the engineering information has been made available in the appropriate spot under engineering in the township website?
Yes,
okay.
And the revised drawings will be also published on that this week as well. For the ADA.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, understood. Thank you, Mr. Chadi.
I do want to note under John's report, one addition, and it could be discussed some more, but it's, I think, some positive news. John and I and Rich Young, our DPW superintendent, we are looking at a proposal. I've asked John to give us a proposal to conduct an analysis of our stormwater infrastructure and to do so in a way that gathers that data so it can be put into a GIS system because with the increase in significant weather events that we've been experiencing, complaints of flooding, localized and neighborhood flooding and surges of stormwater infrastructure, we certainly want to be in a position to evaluate those and make recommendations for any necessary capital infrastructure improvements. But in order to do so, we want to know what that infrastructure is, its age, its condition, its capacity. And right now we have that, but only on an sort of as needed basis. And it's wherever it is available, it's old paper records. So we're looking at doing a town-wide analysis of our stormwater infrastructure, everything from storm drains to manholes to pipes to outflows, all of that stuff, and carving it up into priority areas with different estimates so that way we can use that information for future planning purposes. So it's something that doesn't yet exist, but I think would be very helpful to taking us into the future and being able to prepare and make improvements. So expect some discussion on that in the coming meetings with John. Under finance, we are expecting a resolution for the budget amendment for a grant that we received, an annual grant. It usually comes after our budget adoption. That's the Clean Communities grant. I also want to note that this month we are going to be starting the budget process for 2026, and that looks like spreadsheets that go to all the department heads to start gathering information from them and their requests for next year, so we could collect that along with other information that's not department specific, but everything from healthcare costs to professional costs to anything else that comes up, pensions, liabilities, revenues, a full analysis. So we're starting that process this month, so that way we can be ready for January with the new finance subcommittee to have a budget adopted in 2026 on time, as we've been doing for the last couple of years. I do want to note, if you've looked at the finance report too, I want to commend our finance team and all department heads as well, because if you looked at that, our revenues are good. They are, for the most part, on track, and in some areas better than expected. You know, you look at uniform fire safety. Our fire official was just here. He's been doing a great job to ensure that all inspections that need to be done are done, that life hazard, non-life hazard uses are being inspected to make sure that everybody's safe. And our expenditures overall seem to be right on the money. What I do is I look at, okay, the report was through the end of August, so that's 8 months, 8 divided by 12. That gives us a percentage, and then look at the finance report. Are we in the ballpark? And we are there, and so that's a testament to good budgeting that we've been doing, and the department heads sticking to their budgets. So I just want to point that out as we come close to the end of the year. Under police, we will have a swearing in of the sergeant at the next meeting. The chief included his report. Were there any questions there? Okay. Under Public Works, a number of resolutions there. We did discuss the MCMUA, that's the Morris County Municipal Utilities Authority Recycling Agreement. That's a quasi-shared service with them to provide for the collection of recyclables. The agreement is expiring, and so we have to renew that agreement. We will need a resolution to do that. That will be slated for the next meeting. Shared service with Harding for the sharing of Public Works equipment. Are there any questions on that? I did provide an email, but you may not have all had a chance to review that before the meeting. Okay. Any remaining questions or concerns there? Okay. I think it's a great opportunity for us to save money rather than having to buy large pieces of equipment and burden taxpayers with more capital expenditures there. So credit to our Public Works Director, Rich, on that. We'll have a resolution to award a contract for the National Playground equipment. That will be paid for largely, a large chunk of that through state grant that we received. A resolution to purchase trailers. These were items that were included in the capital budget, and now DPW has gone through the quoting and procurement process. The information, I believe, was in your agenda packet with the quotes. We'll have a resolution for that at the next meeting. Any concerns or questions? Okay. And then finally, under WPC, our water pollution control, there's some vertical turbine and other equipment that Mr. Miller had included in the monthly report, and there were some attachments included in the agenda packet. We'll need a resolution to authorize those purchases. I do want to take an opportunity again to recognize Rich Young, our superintendent, not only on everything he's been doing with the department, but also with the pool this year. He's just fantastic, and he's always willing to help, day or night, weekend, whenever it is. And thanks to him, we had another successful pool year. Every year, regardless, there's some hiccup, there's something that happens. This year was no exception, and Rich stepped in. He was also a certified pool operator, and we were able to benefit from that certification this year. And I want to really thank him and give great credit to him for what he does. Tax collector, or I'm sorry, any questions on his reports?
Yeah, well, just, I'm sorry, Stacy? Morning?
No, go ahead.
No, sorry, I'm good.
Yeah, the vertical turbine is
Yes.
an expenditure which was part of the, it was a planned expended expenditure.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Accounted for in the
2025 capital.
capital budget
Yes.
for water pollution control. Understood. Thank you.
Correct. Thank you. Tax collector, report there. Any questions? Okay. And then finally, not to be labor tax assessor, because we had a whole almost hour and a half on assessment matters. Any questions or concerns or anything on the assessor's report there? Okay.
Okay. Thank you,
Then,
Mr. Shaw.
Mayor, that is it for workshop.
Great. At this time, we now move on to second hearing of citizens. Mr. Conti, do we have anyone raising their hands?
There are no hands raised online.
Great. At this time, I invite anyone in the audience to come before the mic should they desire to do so. I see no one coming before the microphone, so I shall now close the second hearing of citizens. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Mayor, just, you did want to go to executive, or did
yes.
you want to do that? Okay.
That's right.
So I just would note then for the public, if we do go into executive, we are not planning to take any action afterwards. So once the executive session is concluded, then the meeting would be concluded. We have to make that this clear.
Thank you, Mr. Shadi. So at this time now, do I seek a motion to adjourn the meeting?
No.
Are we adjourning or are we going to executive?
Oh,
There's two different
Move
things.
to executive session.
Second.
So who made the motion? Okay,
Committeeman Alberowitz, second.
okay, it's at 9:50. Okay, let me get my, Mr. Alperowitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Ewald,
Yes.
Mr. McHugh,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Rowland,
Yes.
and Mayor Troy.
Yes.
Motion passes, and Stacy, I'll send you a new link for executive session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I change my mind and vote no on going into?
Recording stopped.
Sometimes I'm just on autopilot.
Oh my God.
Yeah.